Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by John Boy Media. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. It's playoff week. We've erased the Eagles game. We've got a nice podcast. We talk with Entertainah for about 20 minutes, and then NYG Daily Weiss for about 20 minutes. Some Daniel Jones talk in there, some Giants playoff talk. Justin, I'm hyped. I mean, this morning I really got myself hyped. In fact, I almost texted Julian about hey, when are we getting that playoff hype video? Because I kind of need it in my veins right now. Justin, how are you?
Yeah, man, we're getting close. We're getting close, counting down the days. This is a pretty long week that's approaching, and it's even going to be a long weekend getting to Sunday too. So I'm pumped. NYG Daily, Weiss and Chris the Entertainah, they joined us. We had some good Giants conversations, and part of the reason why we're bringing them on is to get hyped, to recognize how far that we've come this year, and this year ain't over just yet. Let's do it on Sunday. Let's win some games.
Let's win some games has never meant more. I am now I need a win, Justin. I'm going to be devastated if the Giants don't pull this out. I really feel, I know we're going to talk about it on our preview pod. I really feel like the Giants, everything's coming together for them at the right time. They're starting to put the offense more in Daniel Jones' hands, which will help Saquon Barkley be more efficient. Everyone's getting healthy, crossing our fingers on Adoree Jackson. When we see the practice reports on Wednesday and Thursday. But I don't know, man. It just feels like we got a quarterback we trust. We got a pass rush that could be deadly, and I'm just excited for it.
Yeah, coaching, players, things are kind of clicking on all cylinders right now, and every single Giants fan, should be excited. And I think that's the Christmas Eve game tells you that. I started rewatching certain moments of that Christmas Eve game today, and I was in front of people, at the John Boy Media office, and I was hitting my desk over just how frustrating parts of that game was. And including, remember that Azeez Ojulari sack where he came over the top of Kirk Cousins, swatted that ball, got a really good fucking swat at that ball. Kirk Cousins doesn't fumble, yet I rewatched certain parts of the Packers and Vikings game. There was an interior defensive lineman that gets a similar swipe on Kirk Cousins, and of course, he fumbles there. So just it's a few of those things, man, where the Vikings have gotten lucky in some moments this year. There's a few of those things that we're going to need to, for the Giants to win, we need some of those things to go right. Kirk Cousins needs to fumble that ball. When there's a ball on the ground, the Giants got to recover. When there's a pass deflection that goes into the air, these guys got to come down with that interception. When you have an interception in your hands, you got to freaking catch the ball. So, we'll break it down more in the preview pod. But I'm just getting this feeling that in the playoffs, not only does everybody kind of have to be perfect, but you kind of need some of these things to fall in your favor too. Remember Super Bowl 46. I think there was a huge fumble, Victor Cruz fumble that the Giants wind up recovering, and that game could be totally different. So, yeah, need some things to go right.
Some news before we kick it to Entertainah. Mike Kafka, the Carolina Panthers requested to interview him. Did you have a oh no type of moment?
No, I don't think he's getting hired this offseason.
One, I don't think so too. And honestly, Wink Martindale is the one who would worry me much more, because at the end of the day, Mike Kafka, it's kind of a weird situation where an offensive coordinator is hired to call plays and he's not installing his playbook. The first thing he did when he was hired by the Giants, okay, you have to learn the verbiage. You have to learn this Buffalo playbook. You have the Shea Tierney, the Bobby Johnson, and then Brian Dable. It's the Buffalo playbook or the Brian Dable playbook, and Kafka's calling the play. So I didn't have that panic. If Wink was getting interviewed, I'd have a little panic in my heart. But obviously we want to keep Mike Kafka around.
Yeah, the Giants have an offensive coach, and at the end of the day, if we were to lose Wink Martindale, like you said, that would be more worry of, what does our offensive coach do now to have run the defense? And Jordan Ronan brought up an interesting point in our live stream about, I asked him about, how does he evaluate and how does he look at Brian Dable's job as head coach so far this year in terms of how much he's involved in the defense and special teams, basically just everything that he's involved with outside of the offense. And he said, basically, Dable's involved with major personnel decisions, but he does let Wink Martindale run the defense because there is just so much other stuff there's so much other things that go into being a head coach. So I thought that was actually a pretty good point on Jordan Ronan. And, I think we all kind of think and we all want that head coach that's involved in every single thing and every single play and every single decision. But, he does put a lot on Wink Martindale's plate. And at the end of the day, if Mike Kafka is the one that does leave, I don't know Mike Kafka that well.
I trust Brian Dable to get a good offensive coordinator in here.
Yeah, but also I don't know if Mike Kafka is going to be a good head coach. He just became OC and he's still super young. So we'll see.
This episode, we're going to kick it to Entertainah. I want to say we're not going to advertise the watch party because it's sold out. I want our listeners to know though that I do truly feel bad because there's people who wanted to go or needed one more ticket for their fourth friend or whatever to go. I do feel bad but next event we'll figure out, maybe we'll get a bigger venue or something. But I actually went to Bill and I actually didn't even tell Justin this because I knew Justin would be like, no, we can't do this. I tried to add more tickets to it because I wanted to help some people out. And we couldn't do it. So this is actually the first Justin's hearing of it. Because I wanted to help out some people that DM me. But if you can't make it for some reason, let us know and we can try our best to, get those tickets in somebody else's hands.
That's right. All right, and I just got this from Jordan Schultz 2 minutes ago. The Texans have requested to interview Mike Kafka for their head coaching vacancy.
Okay. From Jordan Schultz?
From Jordan Schultz and Ian Rappaport 3 minutes ago. So Ian Rappaport beat him.
Okay.
Sorry, Jordan.
I'm going to tweet this. Julian, you are listening. Please graphic it for Instagram.
Wow. Doing it live. You get to hear it.
The Texans have requested to interview Giants OC Mike Kafka for their head coaching
vacancy. Per Ian Report.
Poor rap sheet.
The report by Ian Rappaport. You think the parents were thinking about that when they named him or when they had the last name? You think they were thinking about that? Holding the baby in their arms. This guy's going to be a reporter.
Let me find an image of Mike Kafka. Here's one with Daniel Jones. That should get some.
Wow. He talks to Daniel Jones.
I saw one of our favorite listeners, Mark Reynolds, tweet at Mike Kafka. He's like, hey, they don't allow NFTs in North Carolina.
Tough. I hear they also don't allow them in Houston.
Yep. All right. Tweets up. Julian graphic. All right. Here's Entertainah, our good friend Entertainah, Chris. All right. We now welcome on to the show our good friend Chris, the Entertainah. Chris, man, I am pumped for these playoffs, and I know you are too.
Oh, dude, super excited. It's been forever. It's 2016. Since I started on YouTube in 2018, we haven't sniffed the playoffs. So this is our first playoff game since I've been covering the team, talking about the team. Didn't think it would take this long. We're not used to this as Giants fans, but we're here. I'm excited. And I think we got a really good opportunity, but I'm excited to be on with you guys. Of course, I've met you guys several times in person, went to the Giants game this year, hung out with Justin a few times. Of course, Bobby, we went to training camp this year. So, I'm really excited, man. Really excited for the playoffs and to talk Giants football with you guys.
I told Justin he'd get the first question, and I know he's going to be mad. I'm taking the first one. What I love is we never covered playoffs, so you have all the Giants fans, like the casual Giants fans coming out of the woodwork, you know?
Oh, dude, I'm going to tell you right now, and I don't mean to cut off your question, but I'm going to tell you right now, if the New York Giants win a Super Bowl, and I'm not saying we're going to win the Super Bowl this year, but even if we go on like an extended playoff run and then we have an aggressive offseason next year, all of a sudden you're going to see like 50 new Giants content creators pop up. Everybody's going to be a Giants fan. That's just the way it works.
And here's what I love is like the celebrities, like fans, like, you know, who aren't like living and dying. Like when people are like, this celebrity is a huge Giants fan. I was like, does he follow me, Entertainah NYG Daily? Like, I don't know how big of a Giants fan is he. But there was someone who followed me. I noticed he told me. I told him I'd bring it up. Hunter Church. He's on the American bobsled team, which is the only Winter Olympic thing. And so whenever someone follows me, I never DM them and I'm like, I appreciate the follow. It was the first time I was like, dude, appreciate the follow. I was like, I love watching the bobsled. It's the only Winter Olympic sport that's like must watch. He's like, yeah. He's like, you guys in Entertainah are my go-to. Like, that's awesome. Okay. So he actually is a diehard Giants fan. So I wanted to bring that up.
That's awesome, man. Thank you, Hunter, man. I appreciate the support. And I do like bobsled too. That's one of like the 2 or 3 Winter Olympic events that I could watch.
Yeah, like
I don't watch many of them, but that's one of them.
like we got to get like Hunter. We got to get a Talking Giant sticker on the car.
I'm sure they'll allow that
for the next one.
Yeah, 100%.
Some type of talk. The first thing you do when they ask you like Talking Giants versus the world or something like that. But we got a lot of time for the Winter Olympics. We got playoffs to talk about now.
We got playoffs to talk about. Chris, we're obviously obviously really excited for this game. We went toe to toe with the Vikings on Christmas Eve. First thing I kind of want to ask you about is are we getting too confident? Are we getting too cocky over the Vikings? Now I know Vikings fans. And I know we've listened to some Vikings people talk about it, and now they're cocky and they're confident that they can beat the Giants again too. But us as Giants fans, are we getting a little too confident and cocky?
Yeah. Yes, we are probably. But at the end of the day, it's the playoffs. I'm excited, and I have legitimate reasons why I think we're going to win this game. Now, would I be shocked at all if we lose it? No. I mean, listen, the Giants and the Vikings, both these teams play close games. I think it's going to be a game that comes down to the wire. Who knows, though, right? Because we have a team that's never played in the playoffs. So it's very hard to predict for this team because, you think back to Eli, his first playoff game, he got clobbered. This is Jones's first playoff game. It's Dable's first playoff game. It's pretty much everybody on this team's first playoff game outside of a guy like Landon Collins, Jahad Ward. But the core guys, none of these guys really have any playoff experience. So we'll see if that plays a factor or not. But on paper, I think we match up pretty well with them. And I'm sure we'll talk about that throughout the podcast. And I think the most important thing when it comes to the playoffs is how you play going in. Are you going in hot? And right now, I think the Giants are playing the best football they've played all year. I know the record may not say that, but the way we played over our last 4 games, I think we've looked as good as we've looked all year. So I think we're playing our best football. The question is our best going to be enough?
Yeah, we said it all throughout the year. Like even like when the Giants were on that, they beat the Jags, they're 6-1. We're like at some point you're gonna need some drop back passing for this stuff to continue, right? Like how does this offense continue success? Well, they've went to that the last few games, and that's when we've seen the most out of Daniel Jones. And we don't need to have some big like Daniel Jones contract, but I want to know what your thoughts are because I go into this playoff game, and it's like, what player am I excited to watch? Like I'm not nervous. I'm sure the nervousness will kick in once the kickoff happens, but I'm not nervous for Daniel Jones in this playoff. Like I'm excited. Like I want to see what 8 does in the playoffs because I kind of think even if the Giants don't pull off a win, I feel like we're going to come away and be like, man, at least 8 showed up.
Yeah, I mean, listen, 8 has showed up pretty much every game this year. I mean, some games he's obviously looked better than others. He had one, the Lions game. He didn't play that great, but we kind of got away from the run in that game and we fell behind. He threw 2 picks. That was probably his worst game of the year. And he had a couple of bad throws here and there throughout the year, but for the most part, he's been the most consistent player on this team outside of, I guess, Andrew Thomas, who had that one bad game with the flu. But outside of that, he's been incredible. I'm not really worried about Jones. I guess in the back of your head, you're a little bit nervous because it's his first playoff game as a quarterback, and who knows what to expect, I guess. But I think he's going to show up, and I think we're going to win the game. And like Justin said, I'm probably way too cocky, but I think we're going to win this game. And I think where we're going to win this game is actually on the defensive side of the ball. I think our defensive line, that's our biggest advantage in this game. Our interior defensive line going up against their interior offensive line. They got a 3rd-string center in there. Their backup right tackle, I think, is playing. So we should be able to take advantage of that with our pass rush. And I think we're going to be able to create some turnovers against this Minnesota team. That's where I think we're going to win this game is on actually the defensive side of the football.
So, Bobby, I want to throw this out here. I know this is really preview pod stuff, but this is the main thing that's really on my brain. We've seen Wink Martindale operate a lot from a too high, with a lot of too high safeties versus, when he had Xavier McKinney, when he had Adoree Jackson towards the kind of that first half of the season, he was going with a lot of single high safeties, blitzing, bringing guys from left and right. So, Chris, I mean, at least I'll throw this to you. Do you still feel like this is a game where the Giants can just trust and rely on that front 4? Or is this a game where maybe you want to still be a little bit more conservative by doubling Justin Jefferson, even if Adoree Jackson's in the lineup? Obviously you can have a mix of aggression in certain situations and being conservative. But I mean, overall, do you trust the front 4 or do you try and generate some pressure? Where do you think Wink's going to rely on this weekend?
Listen, we know Wink, he's always going to blitz, at least in some capacity. Certain games he's going to blitz more than others. I don't think this is going to be one of his blitz happy games. He's going to blitz in certain instances. He's going to try to create some deception and confusion. Maybe he only sends 4, but he sends 2 linebackers and he drops 2 guys back in coverage. Who knows? He's going to try to create confusion, but I don't think it's going to be one of those games where Wink blitzes 45% of the time, which is kind of what we averaged this year, at least according to Pro Football Reference. I don't think it's going to be one of those games because of what you just said. I think they're going to try to double Justin Jefferson, and I'm sure Minnesota's going to move him around. They're going to put him in the slot. They're going to try to take advantage of Darnay Holmes. But that's what I think we'll do. I think we're going to try to get pressure, only sending 4 guys, and I actually think we're going to be able to do it going up against their offensive line. But to combat that, I think Minnesota, I think they're going to run the ball more than they did the first time around. I think they're going to give the ball to Cook. And I think they're going to use a lot of wide receiver screens. You think about that play where they set up the game-winning field goal. They're going to try to take advantage of what they think Wink's going to do by blitzing, by getting the ball out quick. Wide receiver screens. And I worry about TJ Hockenson a whole lot. The first time around, I think he had 11 catches. We all know we struggle in terms of guarding the tight end. So that I actually might worry more about him than Jefferson because I think we're going to double Jefferson. Hockenson might be the guy I actually worry about more in the passing game in terms of doing damage against the Giants in this game.
Yeah, and what is like with the Giants, the good coaching, like, yeah, they have great coaching. The Vikings have good coaches too, especially on the offensive side with Kevin O'Connell. Maybe not so much on the defense, but Kevin O'Connell, like, he's going to see what the Giants defense did this and adjust well, just like we expect the Giants to do. But it's going to be interesting. Here's a question I got because, like you said, there's a lot of matchups I'm excited about too. Like, as Christian Darrisaw is ascending to a great left tackle. I think Azeez Ojulari is a good matchup for him. And then they're on their backup right tackle, Kayvon Cuddy. And then, Dex should dominate. So I think we could have some success versus their front. Who outside of Daniel Jones, if the Giants win, who do you think is going to be the player that's getting, like, he's the Monday morning talk?
Saquon.
Like after the commit. Okay, go ahead.
I think it's Saquon. I think Jones is going to have a good game, by the way, because this Minnesota defense is not very good. And the first time around, I think Justin disagreed with me. I think he mentioned it on Twitter when I said it. And not to say I wasn't thrilled with the way that the passing game looked the first time around. I absolutely was. And it was the first game that the New York Giants went out there and threw the hell out of the football. I think we threw it 42 times. We opened up the offense. I like to see it. I would have liked a little bit more balance in that game. I would have liked to try to use Barkley a little bit more in that game. I think they do in this game. I think they're going to use Barkley a bit more in this game. And I think Dable's been preserving Barkley for this game. He only had like 13 carries our last contest. He sat out this previous week. And that last game, even though the stats may have not said it, I think he only had 59 yards on the ground. You saw Barkley making plays with very little assistance. He was slithering into small holes. He had that burst. I think Barkley is going to have a massive game. I think he's going to be the focal point of the offense in this game. I think, and the other thing you noticed over the last 4 or 5 weeks, we started to try to utilize him more in the passing game. I think Barkley's going to have a big game on Sunday.
Which, Chris, that's actually like and I think that I love this conversation that we had online because the rebuttal to they didn't use Saquon Barkley enough. He had 14 carries. He had 8 catches. And I think
they used him in the passing game.
Most of those
catches of the season
were those swing passes kind of coming out of the backfield where basically I view those swing passes as an extension of the running game. Plus, what would you rather have? Would you rather a handoff off the middle where you have how many defenders right in your face with no separation? Or would you rather have a swing pass closer to the sideline?
No, you're absolutely right.
You're getting at the line of scrimmage. You have all this yards after the catch, and the nearest defender to you is about 10 yards away. So that's where I loved. And hopefully Minnesota, if they don't adjust from a couple weeks ago, hopefully that will still kind of be wide open. If they want to bring a linebacker up, kind of a blitz up the middle, Daniel Jones can look at this saying, I'm not going to take a hit. I'm not going to take a sack here. Saquon Barkley is a swing there on the sidelines, and boom, that's a guy that you want the ball in his hands where there's a open field and there's some space.
God, I'm so fired up right now because this is some of my preview pod talking points. Mike, get Saquon involved in the receiving game. And you saw those swing passes. It was the most catches he had on the season. Yeah. You don't think the Minnesota Vikings are going to game plan for Saquon Barkley? So I agree with you, Justin. Guess what? Build off of what you do well. Let's show some swing pass. Let's run some angle routes. Let's show outside. Bang. Get Saquon because they're going to try and have the end to cover him. Like, there's so much, like, just know that, hey, they saw that too. They saw that too, and they're going to game plan for that. So be ready for their game plan and zig off their zag. God, I'm 100%.
You guys are getting me fired up right now. You guys are getting me fired. But I'm going to tell you what we need to see. And I noticed it, and I saw people talk about it after the fact that I got home. I went to the Colts game, obviously. I hung out with Justin and everybody else. The one thing I really liked in that game, they started to bring back the multi-back sets, right? They started to use Barkley, and I don't think I've seen this before all year, with an orbit motion. And that started to kind of create some deception with the defense. I want to see more of that in this game. If you recall the pass to Bellinger, that was set up due to the defense focusing on Saquon Barkley with that orbit motion. They used Breida a bit in the running game. I want to see more of that too. I want to see some multi-back sets in this game.
Yeah, I really think this coaching staff is gonna, like, they know better than we do, where it's like, all right, you played them 3 weeks ago. They are going to have game plans for the stuff you did well. So how are you going to build off of that? How are you going to break off some tendencies? And I just think it's there. I think the Vikings are a defense where they're not going to kill you with Jimmys and Joes, where, like, it doesn't matter. Like, obviously Zadarius Smith scares the crap out of me, and they put him all over the place. It's hard to game plan for that guy. But I just think there's enough there. I think there's enough on the bone for the Giants coaching staff to chew on and build off of.
I'm with you.
But I wasn't expecting to get into this nitty gritty stuff, and now I'm fired up because it's like the preview pod on Thursday. I'm just going to explode.
I should have built off the Daniel Jones conversation. You started with the Daniel Jones talk, and then I went to the defense. I'm excited for Jones too, though. I think Jones is going to have a big game. I think Jones has looked the best he's ever looked. And you've cut the last 2 weeks. You've kind of seen almost an identical play by Daniel Jones. Everybody talks about his pocket awareness. Both of his touchdown throws, I think this past one was to Isaiah Hodgins, and then he had I forgot who it was to the previous week. It might have
Richie James.
It was Richie James. He stepped up near the goal line. He stepped up, felt the pressure, rolled out, bought his wide receiver time. His wide receiver worked off the route. And that's something we have not seen from Daniel Jones, at least consistently, since he's been the quarterback of the New York Giants. The last 2 weeks, you've seen that, not to mention the 2-point conversion, similar fashion. He bought more time for his wide receiver to get open. So that to me, like little things like that, everybody's going to look at the passing stats. Little things like that is what has really stood out to me with Jones this year.
Yeah, and we said about a month ago on a mailbag podcast, saying, like, and people took this the wrong way. We're like, I don't think Daniel Jones has improved on much, but I think he's just finally has good coaching, and so it's letting him shine more. But that is the one area where it's like, okay, but where is the area of improvement? Is, like you said, improvising in the pocket. Like, he got better at his pocket manipulation in 2021. Like, he had one of the best sack to pressure rates in the NFL, I think 7th. Where this year he's added on top of, avoiding the sack, even though you have pressure, is making plays, whether it's running, it's been his best year rushing. And then, like you said, making those throws off of it too, and not just tucking your head and going. So yeah, I think that's been his biggest area of improvement in year 4.
And I think that's the X factor in this game, by the way, and every game going forward from an offensive standpoint is going to be Daniel Jones's legs. Because in the playoffs, listen, you put it on the line. So, I think during the regular season, you pick and choose your spots as a team in terms of when you want to use Daniel Jones's legs. You do what you got to do. I wouldn't be shocked if Daniel Jones runs for over 100 yards if they have to go that route in order to be able to gain yards offensively. So his legs could be a major weapon in this football game too.
Yeah, and I like how the coaching staff too has given him the freedom to, hey, if there's an open space, instead of throwing the ball away or holding onto the ball and just trying to force the ball in there for, into a receiver, scramble. I mean, scrambling, a quarterback scramble when they drop back to pass. I've said it a lot of times before, but if you're a new listener, hello, my name's Justin. I talk about stats. When you drop, but a quarterback drops back to pass and they choose to scramble, it's the most efficient play in football. Now, that doesn't mean that you should just game plan, do that all the time. But the reason why I think it works so well is because it's not designed. That's the thing that a defense isn't necessarily preparing for. When a quarterback drops back to pass, the expectation that the ball is going to come out of that quarterback's hands. And when it doesn't, especially when you have routes that are going down the field and an offense is attempting to stretch the field, even if you don't want to throw it deep, that pulls all those secondary players back. It pulls everybody back. And then therefore there's room for Daniel Jones to run. There's room for Daniel Jones to scramble. There was not a quarterback running back duo that was more explosive this year with more 10+ yard runs than Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. Like, both of those guys were like the top 10, top 15 in the National Football League, and all players in the NFL with 10+ yard runs. So
wow, I didn't know that stat. That's a good stat.
Yeah, gonna need him to come through. Bobby, you have some other stats too that you looked at, like yards per carry, stuff like that, right?
Well, just total rushing yards, quarterback running back duo. They were second to Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders by 7. Also, something I was going back through it. they didn't run any design Daniel Jones runs in that first Vikings game, which I think there's going to be some opportunities to do there. Like they're not, read options is one of those things where it's like, it's like, oh, okay, this team got burnt by a mixture prepare, and I know they'll see that versus the Colts, but I think that could be something.
I got a good stat for you guys. Maybe you guys saw it when I posted it on Twitter. I just randomly saw it because I'm looking at the red zone stats because obviously I know the offense this year has been tremendously improved inside the 20. We're 7th in the league in terms of red zone efficiency, scoring a touchdown 64% of the time. I looked at Daniel Jones's stats from within the red zone last year in comparison to this year. The touchdowns we know about. He's got 11 touchdowns. I think it's 12 touchdowns passing, 1 interception. That 1 interception came week 1 against the Titans. And he's got 7 rushing touchdowns. So he's got 19 total touchdowns. I think all those came from within the red zone. Maybe 1 or 2 didn't. But the thing that really stood out to me when I was looking at the stats year over year, his completion percentage, and I'm not a huge completion percentage guy because I think that's kind of a skewed stat, check down, so on and so forth could help that stat. But when you're in the red zone, when things are condensed, I think it's a little bit more appropriate to look at that if you could see a major discrepancy year over year. Last year, his completion percentage inside the 20 was 38%. My jaw almost dropped when I read it. This year, 64%. He's third in the National Football League.
Yeah, and it showed up to scoring in the red zone too. It's not just check down, like you said. They are the number 7 red zone offense in the NFL this season, going from 32nd and 31st the last 2 seasons. So
we're taking a pissing contest with stats right now, and I love it.
I know we're getting nitty gritty.
You got me talking stats. I'm having fun.
Listen, you here. Chris, you want to talk about Saquon Barkley being an X factor too, and you're a fan.
It might be a giant factor. I might be saving that for Friday.
Oh, might be saving that for Friday. But I got to finish off with another stat because we have a researcher. We just hired somebody who does football research at John Boy Media. He does some baseball.
I just found that out too, Chris.
That's pretty cool.
His name's Dalton Feely. He's in some of the Blitzball videos too.
Oh, I think is he the guy on Twitter? Doug. Oh no, his name's Doug.
No, that's not Doug Analytics.
No, Doug Analytics. I met him at our tailgate. And he's like, yeah, I'm in engineering. I was like, oh, I wanted to see if maybe you worked for us, but you have like a sick job, so never mind.
Like, you have a very sick job. No, but Dalton does great stuff, and I told him, just for shits and gigs, let me see where your brain's at for this Giants Vikings game. And I want to talk about this stat right here because I have to finish off the stat.
Let me hear it.
Giants have the highest rushing yards per attempt over the last 3 games in the National Football League, 6 yards per attempt. So,
wow.
Here's
obviously Jones has a lot to do with that.
My theory, Chris, you know how the age-old adage is the run sets up the pass?
Yeah.
Is the pass not setting up the run?
Of course.
The pass
sets up the run. One helps the other. I mean, you always want to have as balanced of attack as you could possibly have because that's going to make you unpredictable. I'm going to give you another stat. You got me talking stats.
No, well,
I got
one up you.
I got a stat. I'm going to kill the Vikings on Sunday.
100% chance.
A big reason why I think the New York Giants personally, at least specifically in the first half of the year, why we've been as successful as we have been this year has been the TOP, the time of possession. We all knew that they were limiting mistakes, so on and so forth. I looked, and a lot of times time of possession could be just as dependent on the defense as it is the offense because the defense gets 3 and outs, they get off the field. It allows your offense to possess the ball more. But this is strictly just an offensive stat. The New York Giants this year, on average, possessed the ball 2 minutes and 55 seconds a drive. That is the highest they have had since 2008. They ranked 7th in the National Football League in that category. So almost 3 minutes a drive. 2008, they possessed it 3 minutes a drive. Last year, by comparison, I think it was 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Maybe it was 2:15. So it is a dramatic uptick in that department.
But do you want to hear something crazy?
Yes, I do.
The Giants have the 3rd worst first half time of possession this season in the NFL, but
and probably the best in the second half.
The 2nd best in the National Football League in the second half.
That goes to coaching.
There you go.
That goes to. And by the way, are you guys worried that we're going to lose Kafka because now there's a second team interviewing him?
We actually talked about in the beginning of this pod that while I definitely do not want to lose Kafka, this is the buff. Like Mike Kafka came to the Giants and had to learn the offense. It's a very weird situation where the play caller has to learn the offense. Instead of vice versa, where everyone else has to learn the play caller's offense. So I definitely do not want to lose him. I'll be sad if we lose him, but I won't be like panicked because it's still Brian Dable's offense, and I trust him to hire a good offensive coordinator. You lose a guy like Wink, there's not very many Winks around the league. You know what I mean? Like you would hope maybe they could, Drew Wilkins could boot the defense coordinator. But we saw it with guys like James Betcher that being the protege of someone doesn't make you that guy. So,
yeah, that's why I was so excited when we brought in Dable. And I didn't know much about Dable other than the fact that he was in Buffalo and he worked with Josh Allen. But when I saw the list of head coaches we were bringing in, he was the only offensive guy. And this is the exact scenario why I wanted to hire an offensive head coach. You're trying to mold Daniel Jones at the time. You're not sure if Jones is going to be the quarterback of the future. You may have to mold a rookie, but you want to have stability for that quarterback, something we haven't had in forever. And offensive coordinators come and go, right? Mike, like we're seeing with Kafka, he might be gone after 1 year. Head coaches don't if they do a good job. Most Giants head coaches have been gone after 2 years. But if Dable does a good job, that's why I thought we needed to hire an offensive coordinator for as opposed to a defensive coordinator for the head coach. Because now, like you said, I'm not really too worried about it because I think Dable has just as much, if not more, say on this offense as opposed to Kafka. And I would guess they would probably hire Tierney, the quarterback coach, to be the OC. Maybe give him a bit of a jump up if Kafka were to move on.
And then Davis Webb, QB coach.
Yeah,
we're gonna finish it off with a couple things. What is your go-to? Maybe you don't have one. Maybe this is like me and I'm just projecting. Do you have like a go-to pump-up video, a song you listen to pregame that gets you like extra amp for a playoff game?
I'll tell you, and maybe I will watch it before the playoff game, and it's not Giant related. I mean, don't get me wrong. I watched the Strahan thing.
It doesn't have to be. It can be a speech by Rocky for all you.
I'm going to tell you the speech that I watch, and I used to watch. I probably still do watch it before on every NFL season. I can't recall if I did it this year, but I used to watch it before every NFL season. I'm a big movie guy. Any given Sunday, Al Pacino halftime speech.
Let's go.
That speech is so gritty. That's like the type of speech. Like a lot of times when you watch a movie and you watch like speech from it's corny. That one felt authentic. That one was like, yeah, that was something that my high school coach would say to me in the locker room. So that was like, that felt legitimate. And yeah, that one always resonates with me when I listen to it. That
one translates. We've actually been talking about it on the show the last few weeks because when we were talking about should Nick Gates start at center Ben Bredeson, we're like, I just ran with like the inches are all around us, and now it's been stuck in my head for 2 weeks. So that's definitely a good one.
And I like Rudy too. There's a couple of good speeches of Rudy, but for me, Any Given Sunday is the best.
I like that. That's a great answer.
Thank you. What about you guys? What about Justin?
That's one. The resiliency Super Bowl 42, and then pump up songs. One, Explosions, the closing to the Talking Giants podcast, Your Hand in Mine by Explosions in the Sky. And then the Al Pacino one too.
Can't go wrong with that.
AC/DC.
Can't go wrong with that either. That's our kickoff song, right?
AC/DC. Yeah, like the Back in Black album and then Highway to Hell album. Like just those two albums on shuffle.
Listen, I've never seen AC/DC live. I'd love to see him live.
Yeah. Awesome.
Every one of their songs sound exactly the same, but it's like I'm a huge Tom Cruise fan, and everybody says all his movies are exactly the same. I don't care. I love them. It's the same thing with AC/DC. I can listen to any one of their songs, and I love it. I love AC/DC.
Right on.
Are we doing this or that, Justin?
Nope.
Okay.
How long are we into this?
20, I feel like 25 minutes. I guess that's good for now.
That's an interview.
Chris, obviously people know where to find you, but where can people find you?
Entertainah Talking Sports on YouTube. You can find me on Twitter. I'm usually obnoxious, and I love to get in debates on Twitter. I have a lot of fun, but love talking New York Giants football. Had a blast coming on. Looking forward to talking to you guys after we get a playoff win. But thank you guys for having me on, and let's get this win. I got it, Giants, real quick. I know you didn't ask me before. I'm going to say it anyway. I got 27-23 Giants.
I love it. I love it. I love it. You know what? Maybe we'll be doing this again next week. Let's see how this happens. Let's win some games. Chris and Entertainah, we appreciate you. All right, we welcome on to the program our good friend NYG Daily, Weiss, the NYG Weekly Podcast. Weiss, we usually do Wednesday mailbag pods in season. We're like, all right, let's turn our Wednesday pod into like, let's get hyped. Let's not go into like Zadarius Smith lines up on the guard 20% of the time and this. Let's get hyped up on Wednesday. And who better to bring on than Weiss? You're going to Minnesota. Are you? What made you just like, all right, I'm doing it?
The enjoyment of the season. I've thoroughly enjoyed this season so much. Going to Indianapolis, going to the Giants Colts game, experiencing that. I just felt like, you you've had so much fun, so much yelling in my basement watching these games and excitement and all that. Let me go. Let me go to Minnesota, and I really believe they're going to win this game. So nice stadium. Heard Minneapolis a nice city. Winnable game. Playoffs. What better time than now?
Is Minneapolis a nice city, Bobby?
Have you ever been to Minnesota?
No, I just heard it was
Minneapolis
a good, nice
is a decent for a big city. It's not that bad, but it's just I got like a personal grudge against the entire state of Minnesota, to be honest. But I heard the stadium's nice. Now I want to talk about Daniel Jones to start. Me and you have had conversations. Me and you kind of have. I've always like kind of given you like my unfiltered like let's talk about Daniel Jones, because like sometimes it's even like more positive than I may let through on Twitter or when it's negative. We've talked about him, from last year. I remember talking last year at the bye week to now. You seem to be kind of all the way back in on Daniel Jones.
Absolutely. How can you not be all the way back in? Look, when the season started, right? Well, actually, let's go back to when they hired Joe Shane Brian Dibble. The thought process was, okay, they're stuck with Daniel Jones for another year because of his rookie contract, and there was nobody in the draft worth taking. So it's like, we're just going to play out the season with Daniel Jones. The roster's not good. It's year one of the rebuild. What was the term for it? This is when they take the bullet, whatever. And you see what happens and you go from there. And then, the season started and everyone remembers week one and that sideline, altercation or, conversation, whatever you want to call it, between Daboll and Daniel Jones and his interception. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, this is not going to last, right? But then I always go to this game, that week 3 game on Monday night against Dallas, where despite being pressured, help me out, Bobby, 24 of 29 dropbacks or
something crazy. I think it was like the most pressured, highest pressure percentage like in a game or something like that.
Something like that. Daniel Jones had the ball with the chance to go down the field and tie the game, and he made plays off script. And I was like, okay, this was a pretty impressive showing despite everything that went wrong. And then from then on, you just saw Daniel Jones look comfortable and comfortable and comfortable. And you fast forward, and then he had his moments. He had that moment in London where Saquon Barkley gets hurt and he leads that, drive down the field. And I'm talking specifically Daniel right now. And then you have games, later in the season that are playoff implication games. That game against Washington, not a big statistical game, but the game plan was the game plan, and Daniel Jones executed it, and ultimately leading up to him leading the team to the playoffs. That's what you want from a quarterback. Now you factor in the fact that he just didn't have weapons all season. Go back to training camp, then go to like week 3, go to week 9, go to week 12, 13, then go to today and look at the receivers. At one point, David Sills was the wide receiver 1, right? Where is he now? Darius Slayton in the offseason or in training camp was, they were trying to trade him. Well, where is he now? Isaiah Hodgins was in Buffalo. So Daniel Jones has done everything you could ask for from him. And you would be, people just like to move the goalposts, but I'm not one of those people. He's checked all the boxes, realistically speaking. And at this point, why would you not want him back?
So at this point with the Vikings game coming up this weekend, in your brain, do you feel like he could take away progress that he's made this year in terms of your brain thinking, you want him back next year, maybe even some years after, but basically you want him back next year. Do you think this Sunday against the Vikings, he can take away some of that? Or do you think, especially if they come away with the win this Sunday against the Vikings, do you think more money, more years could be added to that? Do you think that's on the line this Sunday, or has he done enough to prove that he should be here no matter what?
The only thing Daniel Jones can do for himself right now is make more money.
Yeah.
He cannot lose money. A lot of quarterbacks, even the great ones, struggled in their first playoff game, by the way, if you look at it historically. And it took a couple of years or a second time before they won a playoff game. So there's nothing Daniel Jones can do this weekend that will make you say, God forbid, but if he suffers an injury and you're talking about missing, that's a different story. But in terms of on-field performance, there's absolutely nothing he can do. Daniel Jones should be and will be the Giants starting quarterback in 2023. He's earned that. And I really don't think it should even be a topic of discussion anymore, in my opinion.
Yeah, we've talked, Weiss. He has since week 3, like you said, because it's funny enough that we started off 2-0, and those were probably Daniel Jones' worst 2 games of the season were those first 2 weeks of the season. Like, he left week 2, he left all those yards on the field. Week 1, he missed some plays. He had that horrible interception, and Saquon carried him in week 1, and then week 2, the defense, won that game versus the Panthers. Since then, he has been damn near perfect in these games. Like, damn near. There is 2 to 3 plays a game where you're like, you can either like, hey, he should have pulled the trigger on that, or he missed the throw. I don't think people watch quarterback play week in, week out, because, no one really does for all the quarterbacks around the league. You watch your team. Like, you look at the best quarterbacks, man, they have a lot more than that, per game. Even the great ones like Mahomes, but he has been played, like, damn near perfect. Now, you had a good interaction with Brett Coleman, who does some stuff, and I respect him, and he had a take that was, saying, like, if you go and look at it, like, there's been a couple plays here and there where Daniel Jones could have taken some shots. And I agree. And that has been my only critique of Daniel Jones this year, where there is a couple plays where it's like, I feel like you should have pulled the trigger on this one. Like, there could have been a big play here. And then I see in the reply someone say, I think Derek Carr would do wonders with his coaching staff. And he said, I agree. I'm like, oh my, are you serious? Like, no, Derek Carr's wouldn't have done wonders for this. And again, the offense has gotten better the more they put it in his hands. Like, coming away from that tie game versus the Commanders, we were saying, put this offense in his hands. He deserves it. He has done more. And since then, you've seen, like, some of the better statistical games and just better games overall from Daniel Jones, where it's like they put more on his plate. And again, he's just with wide receivers, where now you can just, the only thing they have really is consistency. Like with Hodges, right, James, and Slayton, you got a little bit of consistency there. Like, you don't have any guys, and they haven't been a great, and they also haven't been a great handoff team. So, Giants fans should be very happy about Daniel Jones right now.
Should be thrilled.
If you live in the world of, like, hey, you want a top 5 guy or no guy at all, okay. But if you live in reality, like, you should be very happy with Daniel Jones' season this year.
But here's the thing that gets me about that, Bobby, is, and I have this conversation all the time with people, right? Is every single time in the draft, people talk about, all they talk about is upside. This guy has this upside. That guy has that upside. I'm like, okay, upside is great, but where is the floor? Because 9 times out of 10, typically that quarterback that you talk about or somebody talks about with upside, their career is more closer to their floor than them actually reaching their ceiling.
Yeah.
So look, in my opinion, there's 5 guys that are elite: Mahomes, Allen, Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Lamar Jackson. Still think Aaron Rodgers is there, but we can have that debate. But after that, to me, everybody's the same. They're all relying on their supporting cast. They're all relying on their coaching staff. I can't sit here right now and definitively say that Dak Prescott's a better quarterback than Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, people talk about the numbers. He has close to 4,000 total yards of offense, when you factor in the rushing yards and the passing yards. He didn't play last week, but if he did, he probably would have eclipsed 4,000 yards. He has 24 touchdowns, and he has 5 interceptions and 2 fumbles, 7 turnovers. And you look at his surroundings and what has changed. This is also his first year in the offense, by the way, too. There's always growing pains for a quarterback in their first year.
And to be operating at this flaw, it's one thing for, like, we knew this offense was going to make Daniel Jones look better coming into the year. We knew it. Our question was how much better. To be basically since week 3, we're operating this offense almost flawlessly, minus Seattle. Like, that is something for, again, first year in a system.
And then the month of December, when they needed to make the playoffs, they needed to win games. What happened? Daniel Jones, here's the ball, take us home. And he did. I truthfully speaking, like, I think we spoke last year this time, and I was talking about, the timeline with the quarterback and the rookie contract and what's the future of Daniel Jones. You can't just continue to live off what your opinion of Daniel Jones was when he was drafted or after his second year or third year. You have to be fair. And realistically speaking, I don't know what box he hasn't checked. Healthy all season? Check.
Yeah.
Win big games? Check. Make people around you better? Check. How many receptions does Richie James have?
All of his receivers are in the top percentile, like top 5, either first or top 5 in catch rate for their average depth of target. Even Darius Slayton. People look at Darius Slayton. He's top 5 in catch rate for his average depth of target.
And you mentioned the month of December. I think before this season, Daniel Jones maybe had like 5 or 6 career games played in the month of December because he's been hurt and he hasn't been available. And that's really what sucked about last year too, is that, they fire war criminal Jason Garrett, and then, we get one healthy snap of Daniel Jones, not that, that Freddie Kitchens was not going to set that Freddie Kitchens offense wasn't going to set the world on fire, but still we were robbed of that opportunity to see Daniel Jones without Garrett. And luckily, we've got to see it this year, and he's gotten better in the month of December when he's been healthy. So Weiss, maybe just we'll move away from the quarterback here. I think the quarterback performance is certainly part of this next question, but a random person asks you, and I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of random people, random followers, random followers on Twitter, right? But a random person will ask you how the Giants went from the laughing stock of the NFL to 1 year later being in the playoffs. What do you tell them went right?
Well, ownership, I think, realized, the way they were operating was not working. They could not keep doing this. They could not keep it in the family anymore. It was time for a change, and it was time for wholesale changes. And then once you do that, that should be the easy decision for John Mara, based on what we've seen. Then it was about, okay, how do we hire the right person? And kudos to John Mara. I think in terms of their GM search, it was a really good search. There was a lot of really good names. And the same names that they interviewed last year, you're seeing in the cycle this year with some of the openings at GM. You get the right guy. You let that general manager. One of the things during the Gettleman era, I just kept saying was, you have to have philosophical alignment. Your front office and your head coach has to speak the same language. They both have to know what the state of the roster is. You can't have a general manager in a hot seat, if you want to call it a hot seat, whatever, and a first-year head coach trying to instill his philosophy on the team. You just can't have that. You can't have 2 separate guys on 2 separate timelines. They finally did it right and got a GM and a head coach on the right timeline. And then look at the results, right? The one thing I point to is, look at the guys that they signed, those bargain bin free agents. Fabian Moreau, Jalen Smith, Landon Collins coming in, the linebacker, Gerard Davis. I mean, these guys that they have picked, Isaiah Hodgins, right? These guys they've picked up off the street. Yeah, I mean, you lose track of them. And what has happened? There's a certain type of player that the coaching staff wants. The front office agrees. They find it. That player excels, right? Or it contributes at least. That's what happens. That's why it's so important that your general manager and your head coach be philosophically aligned. And then when you do a good job with your searches, you get a coach in here that, knows how to get the best out of players. And then you see guys like Daniel Jones, and you see guys like Dexter Lawrence, and you see guys like, Xavier McKinney before the injuries that sort of have their best career year. And you're seeing that with the Giants.
Top moment from the year.
Has to be going for 2, week 1. Set the tone. Nothing
People forget Chris Myrick caught that game-winning touchdown, though.
Your boy Chris Myrick.
Can't be stopped.
Glad he's still part of the team. I have this question, and this goes into, this morning I was listening to, music and pump-up speeches and the Giants Super Bowl 42 resiliency speech, over and over again. I ended up tweeting it because I just kept on listening to it. I can convince myself this team's going to the Super Bowl. That's how hyped up I can get at moments. Do you have a go-to hype up song or video or speech, the Rocky speech, or do you have anything, or you just kind of
There's 2 images. I actually have images in my head or moments. Do you guys remember when the Giants? Of course, you guys remember when the Giants won that second Super Bowl, and Eli sort of was tearing up a little bit. He was sort of wiping his eyes.
Yeah,
he was looking at.
It's burned in my head.
It's that America's Game 2011 the ending scene. I have that in the back of my head, and then I have the Super Bowl 42. I think it was the NFC championship game in Green Bay when Amani Toomer makes that one catch on the sideline and signals for a first down. These sort of moments that I have in my head where I think back to where I was and I was like, man, we're not going to win this game, or I can't believe we just won this game. I have moments like that. It's still images in my head like that, and that makes me believe. And then what I do is I compare it to moments in the season. Going for two, that image of Dayball hugging Saquon and Sterling Shepard, right? Kayvon Thibodeau's strip sack, right? Stuff like that I have images of that in my head, and I just play through it all the time.
Winning in London, did that in 07.
Yeah.
The bloody hand of Daniel Jones.
I love it. Bobby, how far into this are we?
About 16 minutes. We got time.
All right, so Weiss, maybe to finish off, but I wanna introduce a segment into these interviews. Instead of just having an interview where we're talking about the Giants, Daniel Jones, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? We're gonna play a game called This or That. So, got a couple questions for you. This or that: Hottie throwing up the double birds or Kayvon Snow Angels? Which one? Do
you can use any of the 25 times that Hottie's thrown up double birds.
Yes.
It got to be the double birds.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's it. To build off that. How emotional were you when Kenny Galladay caught the touchdown?
Very.
I'm serious. Like I was. It made me feel warm inside. Like it was like a nice closure.
I was taking a piss and I missed it.
Oh, dude, that is. I don't think there's a moment from the season.
But you know what? I got really pissed off at Darius Slay, and I typically don't like to do this. But what he did after the game, like, I can't be the only one that found that to be really weird.
Well, I don't like Darius Slay. I think his wife is one of those people who goes and finds people. Like when I tweet out Big Play Slay about Darius Slay, and she'll come and be like, Big Play Slay. So I was like, fuck. Finally, I just started replying to her, and then she blocked me. So I don't like Darius Slay.
Well, listen, I guess she gets it from her husband. Listen, it was great coverage by Darius Slay on Kenny Galladay. Kenny Galladay just made a great catch. And then he goes on Twitter after the game, and I really don't think he had his uniform off because it was a quick turnaround. He got to the locker room, picked up his phone, looked up, that tweet that the Giants saying they're releasing James Bradbury, which, by the way, I mean, we all know why, and even James Bradbury knows why. But for him to just sort of like gloat about that, it's like, are you that mentally weak? Like, I just found it to be really weird. You just won the NFC East. You locked up the number 1 seed. Typically, players, they're feeling themselves in the locker room. You go on Instagram Live. We saw the Giants do it. You have a good time. You're wearing your hat.
Feeling like you need to do that after you just beat the 3rd-string practice squad team of the New York Giants. Were you allowed a touchdown to a guy who hasn't been able to do shit through the last 34 games? And then you're going to, lo and behold, that's going to be the thing you post.
I found that to be weird. Oh,
it is. Instead of saying that we're NFC East champs, we got to buy, look at the Eagles. It's thank you, Giants, for being bad.
Bobby, you just win the NFC East to lock up the number 1 seed. You go into the locker room. Are you looking up an old tweet or are you celebrating with your teammates? You're probably looking up old tweets, but
I might find an old tweet of someone shit talking me. I wouldn't be like, that's like if someone,
It was a weird thing to do.
So here's something is I went on an Eagles podcast in 2020. And they asked me like at the end, like, can you give a bold prediction? I'm like, oh, I'm not really a bold prediction guy. But I was like, you know what? I'll say Darius Slayton will win the battle versus Darius Slay in the Big Play Slay. They clipped just me saying that and posted it out, and all these Eagles fans are like, look at this clown, da-da-da. So I was like, okay, I'm going to remember that. And then you remember the second game, 2020. How did that game end? Darius Slayton burning Darius Slay, closing the game out on a big 40-yard catch up the sideline. And I went and responded to every single Eagles fan on that. So I kind of do feel that, but I'm the people who, if people talk shit at me, I'll just trust me, I'm going to come back at you. So, but anyway, screw Darius Slay. Any more this or that, Justin?
I do. I have a few more. So, going to give you hypothetical playoffs scenarios here, Weiss. This or that, a Landon Collins pick 6 in the playoffs or a Kayvon strip sack and score in the playoffs? It's nostalgia versus the present right now.
A lot of people talking about the Giants moving the ball on the Vikings like they did 2 weeks ago. The Vikings offensive line is beat up. And I do actually think I'm very high on the Giants defensive line as a whole.
And it's
And I
healthy.
think if they're healthy, which I think they're going to be with Azeez Ojulari back. And if Azeez doesn't get hurt in the Minnesota game, who knows what happens? I do think they're going to get to Kirk Cousins. They're going to have to. And I think it's more likely you see a strip sack by Kayvon Thibodeau. You said
Which would
strip
you
sack.
rather want, though?
Oh,
Yeah, which
Kayvon
one? Which one is like the Giants fan in you? What are you going to get more pumped
Kayvon.
about?
Kayvon.
Yeah.
Kayvon.
We want to look
Kayvon.
back at his career and talk about, like, you know,
Kayvon.
that was the moment.
Yeah,
type thing.
Kayvon.
Right on. All right, this
Uh,
isn't necessarily a this or that, but Richie James, Darius Slayton, or Isaiah Hodgins. You get to keep one on the team next year, or one is going to start. Who would that be?
This is tough because it's between Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Isaiah Hodgins. I really like Isaiah Hodgins a lot. Darius Slayton, it's been a fun 4 years, but I just don't trust his hands enough. In the second half of that Colt game, he fumbled the ball. Remember that? And, didn't making a big deal, but he just makes plays like that have me scratching my head. Richie James actually has been a good slot receiver. Justin, you actually changed my opinion on that when we were talking about it. You say put the punt returning aside.
Mm-hmm.
He's been a good receiver. He had a couple drops, but everybody drops the ball in the Giants. But I think Isaiah Hodgins. I really do like Isaiah Hodgins. I think there's a real upside there. Like he could be the Giants' number 2 wide receiver next year.
Here's my thing with Hodgins is because he's brand new and just started playing, he gets treated like a rookie. He is a third-year player, and despite all of Slayton's downfalls, he's led the Giants in receiving 3 or 4 years. Like which is kind of what for a 5th-round rookie who missed basically all of training camp his rookie year too, and then in one of the other years that so his rookie year he misses all of training camp, the first 2 weeks of the season, leads the team in receiving, and then his 4th year they didn't even want him. Like they were actively trying to get rid of him, and he leads the team in receiving.
Here's the only rebuttal to that. And now, Bobby, I agree
speed
with you,
always
and
will translate too.
I value Darius Slayton, but here's the only rebuttal to the whole Darius Slayton has led the team in receiving over like the last 4 years. Is that Darius Slayton is leading the team in receiving, maybe besides 2019, leading the team in receiving because Darius Slayton can provide XYZ, or is it just by association that everybody else around him is so bad? That's the question.
I mean, you got 12 games of Shep, in 2020. So I think there's that speed always matters, and Slayton's had big games this year, and he's always gotten wide receiver 1 coverage, except for last year. Which last year
I think we would put it as like the power ranking of. I think you and I would have Hodgins like 3rd. Like if we had to choose one guy to bring back.
Me? I would have him 2nd. Richie James, I've been happy with him. He is a slot receivers kind of, their production can be a little more scheme related than them just being a really good receiver.
I'm bringing Richie James back, baby.
Of course you are.
He's number 2, Slayton's 1, and then I would put Hodgins 3. That's my power.
All right. That's an interview with our good friend Weiss, NYG Daily. What day are you flying out to Minnesota?
Sunday morning, coming back Monday morning. This is a business trip. I'm not going to the Mall of America. I'm not going to a Timberwolves game. I'm not doing any of that.
Business trip, I like it. Ready to kill.
I'm going to Minnesota.
Do not let their fake niceness fool you. Do not associate with they are not nice people. They are fake nice. So, like you said, just
keep that in mind.
Like you said, business trip. Where are you sitting? Maybe we'll try and find you on TV.
V2.
Anywhere? Is it going to be near LPG? Because that's how you get on TV.
So like 20 rows behind LPG.
Okay, so maybe we'll get a nice shot.
Person that I'm traveling with was not willing to cough up as much money as I was for tickets. But
yeah, I was going to say, I mean, you're traveling to Minnesota for a playoff game. Like you are coughing up some serious dough. Weiss, we appreciate you. Where can people find you?
Follow me, NYG Daily. Everything else you can find there. Just hit a follow, tell your friends.
Appreciate you. All right, that was fun. I mean, I'm pumped up. I need it to be the preview pod. Then I'll be up in New York. Yeah, we are going to New York. We're gonna burn that city. We're gonna burn everything down. Justin, I'm excited. I'm excited to see you in a couple days.
Excited to see you. Bobby Skinner, we're gonna go hard in the paint for the preview pod. I kind of
Might last 3 hours.
I really even want to go quarter by quarter. I mean, there's some things that I've been learning about this Giants team is that it's not just a whole 4-quarter effort. It's not just a whole game effort. The Giants perform a certain way in the first half, they perform a certain way in the second half. You obviously heard a little bit about that with Chris the Entertainah about the time of possession thing. Even the Vikings are a team that perform a certain way in the second half. Both of these teams seem to be second half teams. So we're going to break it all down. Super pumped, super excited to see you. We'll have Danny King as well. I think we'll all hopefully be in person, fingers crossed. So excited.
Yeah, we will be. We will be, unless my plane doesn't make it. But it will.
Wow. Okay.
It will.
Okay.
All right. We appreciate you guys. We'll be back Friday with a preview pod. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.